Coming up on Behind the Artist, DeRubeis, Abstract Sensualism. DeRubeis is today's hottest selling artist. Achieving superstar status, he has created one of the most sought-after styles in modern art.
I'm Chris DeRubeis, and this is Abstract Sensualism.
In Leonardo da Vinci's words, life is pretty simple. You do some stuff, most fails, some works. You do more of what works. If it works big, others quickly copy it. Then you do something else. The trick is that doing something else.
Abstract Sensualism is just, it's kind of like a controlled chaos that's a beauty within itself that has its abstract moments and then the details.
Everything about it is sleek and sexy, and the bending of the lines, kind of like the curves on a woman.
People are so intrigued and drawn to them that they want to really know exactly how I create the stuff, and I try to keep as much of it secretive as I can. It's a pretty radical environment to create some of my pieces.
And what I didn't know, and what he didn't tell, was he's lighting it on fire and freezing it immediately.
There's some really strong chemicals, and you got to protect yourself.
He is going somewhere in the art world in the future. Pay attention, people.
What am I supposed to be looking at, him or this?
Whoa, he's quite a personality.
Flamboyant, eccentric. In his 20s, he would become a modern-day Salvador Dali.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an exact defining moment when I knew this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life, but there was many moments that I felt that along the way through my journey as a kid growing up.
We could tell when he was about 3 or 4 years old. For instance, holding onto a crayon and pretending it was a motorcycle, and he would write on the back of it, and everything was just free form. It was not coloring within the lines in a coloring book.
Born Christopher DeRubeis, signs of exceptional artistic expression would become apparent to most, but not all thought DeRubeis had the touch.
Well, my art teachers loved me.
Whoa.
This piece is pretty cool. I did this in 3rd grade. My teacher is Mrs. Baird. This was something that was really interesting because this was one of the first things that I did that I got an A on as an art project. I was like, hey, I'm pretty good. So this was kind of cool. So it kind of started the whole thing, I think, for me.
Whoa.
He replicated one of Picasso's paintings with a very keen eye, and when his teacher saw that, it really showed that, okay, he is going somewhere in the art world.
So I would say the 3rd grade was really where I started to see where I had an interest in something that was pretty cool.
Anthony DeRubeis Sr., DeRubeis' grandfather, was vicariously reliving his artistic ambition that had never come to life through his grandson. He became DeRubeis' biggest supporter, fan, and mentor.
His grandfather absolutely jump-started his career.
Yeah, my grandfather never became an artist. He didn't do it because his family kind of steered him away from that direction, saying there was no money in that. You shouldn't do that. You should just, be a businessman.
And he wasn't about to let that happen for Chris, and just pushed him, enrolled him in different art lessons, and just really supported him right from day one.
We were always playing around with chalks and colored pencils and watercolors.
The talent was enormous, and there was no shortage of style.
This is a cat or a tiger. Kind of matches my head, I don't know. Says I was about 8 or 9 years old. This is something I'm just having fun with again in junior high school. This piece is really neat. It kind of reminds me of my grandfather. I did this in '92.
Then, his grandfather gave him a gift that would change his life.
And he got me that airbrush when I was 13 years old. First airbrush thing I ever did when I was just learning, about 13 years old.
Whoa.
Kind of cool. 9th grade, just learning how to use the airbrush, messing around doing a project for the class.
The rest was art history. DeRubeis and the airbrush became inseparable. At 15 years old, he got his first official art assignment to airbrush t-shirts at the renowned Magic Mountain in California.
I was painting at Magic Mountain for a couple years, and then sure enough I got fired, but I knew that was what I wanted to do as a career for the rest of my life.
Slightly irreverent, his entrepreneurial spirit pushed him to start his own business. Risky but totally DeRubeis. He would airbrush t-shirts, paint cars, and anything that had a surface. DeRubeis was defining his future.
So I started painting motorcycles and starting to figure out, that was getting me by to help me paint, pay for art school and stuff, trying to figure out what I wanted to, accomplish is if I wanted to do like animation or if I wanted to do car design. I went to a few different schools. I realized that the art schools really wasn't for me, and it wasn't really giving me that edge and that thing that really defined me as an artist. And they don't teach what I do in school.
What DeRubeis was searching for had not yet been invented. In his mind, he had only one option: do it yourself.
So one day I was, grinding the metal on the motorcycle tins, and then bam, it was just like this crazy reflection where the grinds were just bending and bouncing off like an amazing light form. And then I said, from that moment on, I was like, forget the school. I found kind of what I wanted to do the rest of my life and do something that was like a sculpture / painting. And then started using the paints, and then I started adding chemicals and heat and just an array of different things for my technique to build my style. And I pretty much created a new art form. The career-changing moment for me, even though I didn't sell the piece, was my first metal piece that I did.
DeRubeis' first original creation was called Medusa and became the visual definition of a New World art form.
I kind of came up with my own style. It's called abstract sensualism. It was the best way I could describe the new style. There was nothing set for what I do because it was so unique and so different that I just thought that fit.
Abstract sensualism was born. Fine art on metal.
I think family and friends were definitely intrigued and wanted to know the process and wow, how did he do this?
I would say that it was extremely creative. He was onto something extraordinary.
But I think art collectors were definitely skeptical. Art galleries, absolutely. Is this going to sell? This isn't what people are used to seeing.
The response that I got from people that first saw my images, my artwork painted on metal, they were intrigued by it, they were fascinated by it, but they've never seen anything like it. And so they were very skeptical about how they could sell it, how it was marketable.
Unprecedented and undoubtedly taboo for art galleries. Despite criticism, DeRubeis' family was determined to support his edgy and groundbreaking concept.
The very first year he ever decided to do that, it was tough. We were at a place financially where the only place or the only way we could make it happen is to put that money on our credit card.
In spite of their enthusiasm, DeRubeis' first art expo was a major disaster.
And when he came back and nothing had sold and we were kind of in the same place, and then it rolled around the following year and the following year, it was tough. And there was times when I think we both kind of wanted to give up.
Giving up was not an option for DeRubeis. He knew he had something no one else had. DeRubeis' artistic mastery as an airbrush artist was not enough to keep his family above ground zero.
So my wife was, working 2 jobs to try to support us and me and basically my art career to try to develop it into something. So she was shoving all this money on credit cards so that she could help promote me.
Even DeRubeis' dad got into the art game to help support his fledgling son. But it was a rude reality.
Once you get out into the real world, it's actually pretty difficult for an artist. There's so many talented artists out there in the world, and only a small percentage of them actually make it to the art galleries, to the scene. It just seems like it's just very difficult.
We didn't realize that even in the art world, it's definitely about your talent, but it's also who do you know? Who do you know who's going to get you out there?
With a baby on the way and debt taking its toll, the stress level was growing, and so was DeRubeis' waistline.
When I got pregnant, Chris got pregnant.
I was still under a lot of pressure. We were still investing all those credit cards, and I have a kid coming on the way, and I was working a ton of hours, 12 to maybe even more hours a day, and that was stressing me out. Probably just going out eating food late and eating drive-through and not eating healthy and right, and probably drinking too many drinks, and the calories just kept on adding up. And this was me on a art TV show teaching people how to airbrush, and I was on camera, and they were photographing me on there, and that's the moment I kind of saw when, I was sitting there on camera, and I looked at myself when they replayed the video back, and I was like, whoa. And this moment right here, when I was sitting on the TV show, I'm like, wow, I gotta do something with that.
Welcome back. I'm Jennifer Perkins. Chris DeRubeis is here with me. Now, Chris, you've done all sorts of projects from little bitty to ginormous, right?
Yes, I have. Anywhere from small little cell phone cases with little flower designs or leopard print patterns to huge waterfalls in office buildings that are like 25 feet tall.
This period in DeRubeis' life was not only a nightmare, it was a wake-up call.
Basically, I came to a moment in my life where there was a point that was just right there. It was, you know, it's do or die. It was the last credit card, the last dollar, and my wife told me it was going to be the last show.
And those were kind of my exact words. Do or die, this is it. We can't do another show. Our credit cards are pretty much maxed out. I love you and I want to support you, but funds aren't there anymore.
Time was not on his side. His abstract sensualism was not being recognized by gallery owners. His last gamble would be at the Art Expo in Las Vegas.
That was pretty stressful. There was a lot of pressure on me to do it, and I had a feeling I had some really strong work there, and that's when I met Dave Smith.
Art publisher David Smith, also known as Big Daddy, is the man to have on your side if you want to be recognized in the art industry. He has turned starving artists, like Michael Goddard, into superstars.
Because I kind of was looking for artists that were experimenting on new substrates.
Smith was fascinated with DeRubeis' unusual approach to painting on metal, something he had not witnessed in his lifetime.
Metal art isn't something new. It's been around since the 70s. The problem is it always looks like it was made in the 70s. And when I saw Chris's work, for some reason it had this really cool blending and it didn't have that 70s or early 80s feel to it. And when I talked to him, he'd been developing his own chemical concoctions to cause the separations of the paint. And what I didn't know and what he didn't tell was he's lighting it on fire and freezing it immediately and, you know, uses his brush in a specific way.
In David Smith's eye, DeRubeis' juxtaposition of his airbrush techniques and traditional paintbrush was evolutionary.
I talked to Chris and I said, you know, when you develop an art form, you have to have a title for it. So I said, so I'll try to come up, and he goes, no, it's abstract sensualism. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, it's abstract, but I wanted it sensual and sexy and sleek, and the bending of the lines, kind of like the curves on a woman, and just everything about it is sleek and sexy and has that cool, you know. I was like, okay, not only did he develop his own art form, he already had the title for it.
Abstract sensualism was here to stay. DeRubeis and Smith would become a dynamic duo, a combo that would rock the art world. Then the unexpected. DeRubeis' grandfather lost his battle with cancer.
It was absolutely devastating to him. Chris shut down.
He meant and still means everything to me, and I wish he was still here to be able to, you know, see how I've progressed as a person, as a father, as a man, as an artist.
Chris feels in his heart and will tell anybody that his grandfather is the reason he's where he's at today.
Just wanted to thank you for your encouragement and everything that you've done for me, and I wish you could see the life that I have now, and without some of the little things that you've done. For instance, when I was 13 years old and you got me my first airbrush, I don't know if I would be in the position that I'm in now. I don't know what I'd be doing or where I'd be going, but the direction and the path that I've chose and that you've helped provide for me is pretty amazing. So I just wanted to come back here and thank you.
I'm just so happy to see that he made something positive out of it and continue to pursue what was started with his grandfather.
Soon after his grandfather's passing, DeRubeis went on to win the Modern Movement Award, the most prestigious award in the world of fine art.
And my family was there, everybody was there except for my grandfather. And I dedicated the award to him. And so he's not here now, but I know he's watching from somewhere above.
It had finally all come together for DeRubeis, his family, and abstract sensualism.
It's very unique if you know his story, him having to paint very quickly working at Magic Mountain, and then him having to paint on motorcycles, and him having to use metal, and him having to paint on t-shirts, and then having to paint with speed. All this accumulation of the stuff that he'd done together came together to create this one specific style.
Sequestered in a sealed-off metal chamber, DeRubeis mixes his magic, a secret concoction of paint and chemicals only known to him.
I have my special chemical solution. It's called my doobie juice, you know, my little squirt chemical stuff. And, you know, a lot of the stuff I mess around with is no joke. There's some really, really strong chemicals, and you got to protect yourself when you're working with the type of work that I'm doing and the environment that I'm in. It's a pretty radical environment to create some of my pieces. You know, I'm using metal, I'm using power tools, and I use heat. I use fire. It gets really high. It's dangerous stuff sometimes. Sometimes my wife and everybody like, "Are you guys okay? You got to wear your mask today. Make sure you're wearing your mask."
DeRubeis' abstract sensualism is as unpredictable as the artist himself. Each and every creation is as original as the name itself.
The abstract sensualism is it's kind of like a controlled chaos that's a beauty within itself that has its abstract moments and then the details, whether I'm painting the figurative or a landscape type scene or I'm just doing an abstract with multiple panels. I have control over it, but not total control. When I'm using the chemicals and the fire and things, it has its own unique style that, you know, no two pieces could be alike.
What's really unique is there's similar pieces, but no two ever look the same. It's absolutely impossible to make the same piece twice. So, like, we have elements, earth, wind, fire, and water that's behind me. He's made multiple elements, but no two can ever look alike because of the way that he actually makes them. He can't even duplicate it, the way the grinds are, the way the colors react to it. So that was one of the huge appeals, was these are all originals, they're hand done, and there's no two alike, other than maybe its title.
I've actually sat and just watched him create a piece, and just with my mouth wide open, just astonished at his ability to see things that the normal eye doesn't see, and just create this amazing masterpiece.
For years, other contemporary fine artists have been desperately and unsuccessfully attempting to break the DeRubeis code.
You know, there's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of secrets that I do have. I try not to share everything about my pieces because so many people are so intrigued and drawn to them that they want to really know exactly how I create the stuff. And I try to keep as much of it secretive as I can because there's some people out there that try to, you know, want to imitate it or copy it because, you know, they see the attraction of the work that I've created and they want to learn this new style. And I'm not ready to share it with the whole world just yet. You know, it's kind of personal to me to be able to have this unique personal thing, you know, to have something that personal, you know, that I connect with just my own. It's something special for me, you know.
The birth of a new art form is special. Only a few do it. Only a few are living today.
As an artist, you know, the biggest thing for me that I want people to remember is to be able to walk by one of my pieces without looking at the name on the piece. Just to be able to walk by and say, that's DeRubeis. That to me is the way I want to be remembered as far as the guy that created the style abstract sensualism.